Good morning, good morning. Gee, it's great to start your day with coffee with Karma today. Good morning and happy Wednesday. I am live on X today and we'll be posting to YouTube this afternoon. So, are you looking for ways to make your book stand out? Now, I'm going to share with you 5 creative ways to write your book because sometimes the way you write a book is how you stand out. And the only caveat I want to give you is go ahead, feel free to experiment with any or all of these tips, but don't actually use them in your book if they don't feel authentic and natural to you. If you are not a data person and I'm telling you to do data stuff, don't do it. You wanna do things that are natural to you, but you also wanna stretch yourself. I often will write outside of genres that I normally write just to kind of get that rhythm and meter and flow and jumpstart my creativity. Sometimes I find new genres that I work really well in, and then sometimes I'm like, "Oh, that did not work." So, experimenting is a really good way for you to spark the creative juices. So one way, number 1, is use data to persuade. And I actually do this. I do this a lot, where you use statistics and data to show this is why I believe the way I do. Here's the data. So, for example, I did a meta study of the top 2 pages of articles all when you type in the word writer's block in Google. I pulled all those articles for the first 2 pages, and then I analyzed each one. What were this there were a couple that weren't really about writer's block. Most of them gave you, um, like, superficial stuff, and then I also did another part of the analysis was what kinds of keywords for writer's block were they giving you? And they were heavily on these 2 types, but they completely ignored one and had very little of the other. So, what I was trying to show with this data is that going on the internet and typing, "How do I solve writer's block?" isn't gonna help you. What you need to do instead is understand what is causing my writer's block and then go after for a cure for that. And then I sent people to a quiz, which you can still go. You go to, authorneering.com and go to the little tab that says free gifts, and one of the options is quizzes. Writer's block quiz is there. I am working on a 2.0 version to make it even better, a little more accurate, but it works just fine as it is, so feel free if you've got writer's block, feel free to use it. That's what it's there for. It's a writer's block assessment to figure out what is the root cause of your writer's block so that you can fix it. Because if your writer's block is caused by an emotional trigger, walking around the block isn't going to do anything. Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox there. That's using data to persuade. And you can create the data yourself or you can find someone else's data. I've used other people's surveys of people who raise their hands and say they want to write a book. When you look at all the surveys of all if you had 100 people say, "Yes, I wanna write a book," one of them, 1 will actually finish and write the book, and I am personally on a mission to bump that up to at least 25%, because 75% of the people probably don't even need to write a book, it's just a vanity thing, but there's at least 25% of the people that writing a book would help them accomplish a goal. Other than become an author. And I wanna help those people get over the writer's block, get over the hurdles that they feel they can't jump so that they can become an author and achieve that goal that they wanna achieve. So that's using data to persuade. That was number 1. Number 2 is use humor and satire. Now, I use a little bit of humor because I use what comes naturally to me. Blah, blah, blah. I can talk. I use what is natural to me. I tend to be a little bit on the witty side like my father, but maybe one of my mentors, she's got a whole persona that she has a wig and glasses and does this accent and the whole thing, has a whole persona where she does her humor with. And I mean, what works for you? And you can use this in your books, you can use this in your video marketing, you can use this. And when you use humor or satire, you can sometimes say things that you can't say seriously. Try it out. Now, obviously, satire and humor are 2 different things. They both can make you laugh, but one is intended to make you laugh, whereas the other one isn't necessarily intended to make you laugh. But basically, if you use humor, wit, satire strategically, you can convey tough messages in a way that becomes accessible to people. In fact, there's a book out there. It was about getting old, but it's like all in cartoons and it's humor. Because, getting old isn't fun, but maybe you can laugh at it and it makes it easier to get old and yeah. Tip number 3, use fiction. Now you can either use fiction techniques to say nonfiction things. If you are interested in that, I highly recommend John Franklin's book called Writing for Story. I have talked about it before on social media and blog posts. I love that book. A mentor of mine when I was going to grad school recommended it, and it's a fantastic book. It's probably in its 10 millionth printing. Writing for Story by John Franklin. It's all about writing narrative nonfiction. So if you wanna use fiction techniques to write your nonfiction book, that is the book to use as a, guide. Now you can also write nonfiction messages, but couch it in fiction. This is I think it's a growing trend, honestly. There are very few books out there that do that. There's a relatively famous one that's a fiction book that talks about business. I interviewed on my other podcast, The Author Switch, Corey Poirier, who just recently wrote The Enlightened Traveler, which shares his messages of interviewing thought leaders for years, hundreds and hundreds of thought leaders he's spoken to, and he's distilled their information into this parable that he's written in called The Enlightened Traveler. And I have another friend of mine who is working on a fiction book to explain her methodologies of productivity. If that's something of interest to you, I would love to help you do that because I started off in fiction. That was my true love. That was how I started off. Um, there's a story as to how I got derailed from that. I'm still trying to get back into it. But if you want to tell a nonfiction message in a fiction story, I can help you do that. I also recommend John Franklin's book because it can help you do that as well. Um, but that is a way to do it, especially if you've got something that is really unique and can lend itself. If you wanna just talk to see if your idea will it, feel free. Carmaspence.com / schedule, and we can talk about it, see if that's something that might work for you. But that's another way to stand out because so few people are doing it, and like I said, it's a growing trend. So get in on the early end of the trend and you can be a thought leader in that space. The 4th idea is to play with structure. So a lot of people will structure it either by their framework or chronologically, but you can also it depends on the message you're trying to do. You can do foreshadowing, start in the middle, go backwards. Again, these are fiction techniques, but play with the structure so that things don't have to go in step 1, step 2, step 3. They don't have to go it started at noon and then went to 1, then went to 2, then to 3 in the afternoon. They don't have to go chronological. You can play with the structure so that you can use non-linear storytelling because sometimes that is more powerful and gets your message through better. So that's something you can experiment, and that means like flashbacks, parallel narratives, like oh, what was the name of that movie? Mirror something. Multiple perspectives. They add complexity and depth to your story, and they can possibly get your message out in a better, more entertaining way, thus getting it out there. And it makes your book stand out. And idea number 5, and this one I have actually experimented with it. It's write like a filmmaker. What I recommend doing is reading books about script writing. There's one I used to have it in my library, and I got rid of it, and I'm looking for it again. The title has Hollywood in it. If I can find the name of the book, I will put it in the show notes. But it basically outlined the 3-act structure, and it was brilliant, and I took notes, and I don't even know where my notes are anymore. Ah, I also recommend Straczynski's Script Writing 101, another book that I used to have and no longer have. I had an ex-husband who made me get rid of books, and, I got rid of the wrong books. I really did. I shouldn't have gotten actually, all the books I got rid of were the wrong books. I shouldn't have gotten rid of any of my books. I love my books. I'm a bookophile. I'm a bibliophile and a bookaholic, and I should have never gotten rid of a single book. But that is another story. That is a trauma that I am working on and getting through. Hopefully, you will not live through that, the trauma of letting go of books that you later wanna read again. Anyway, that's beside the point. This is Carma Spence, who helps entrepreneurs, executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market books that attract clients and grow their business, saying, ciao for now.